Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life Out Loud. I'm Junie Moon, your host, and I'm thrilled you're here today. We're going to have a great show. Before we dive in, I just want to give you a little bit of a background of who I am and why I'm doing this show, and how awesome it is to be able to share this time with you. So I'm Junie Moon, and I am a certified shadow work facilitator and transformational coach. And my mission is to help people like you stop the sabotaging behavior that keeps you from living a full expressed life. And I do that with individuals, I do that with groups, and I even do workshops around the country. So if you're interested in finding out more about my work, you can go to innercritictamer.com, and you can even grab a free consultation there. And because my mission is to help people like you to have a great life, I decided to create Life Out Loud, where I bring on really amazing people, leaders of our time, people that are walking their talk, are inspirational, and have a lot of knowledge to share with us. And you will not be disappointed by the person I have today. So let me just pull up his bio and let me let you know about George Pitigorski. He seeks to integrate meditation and wisdom thinking into daily life. He blends Buddhism, yoga systems thinking, and non-dual philosophy into a practical approach for living an optimally happy and productive life. That sounds good, right, guys? George has practiced yoga and insight meditation since the early 1970s. So this man knows, he's experienced. I'm so excited to hear what he has to say. And he's studied and practiced with teachers from Tibet, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, Advaita, he can correct me later, and Theravada traditions. He is a multidisciplinary consultant and coach, and is currently a managing director in the New York City Department of Education's Office of School Support Services. George is the author of the Zen Approach to Project Management and Managing Conflict in Projects, and produces the monthly Breakthrough newsletter. And he is a senior teacher at New York Insight Meditation Center, which I've been to. It's a beautiful space. Definitely want to check that out. And has served on its board of directors. So George has done a lot, and we get to hear from him today. Welcome, George. Let's get you on the screen. Hey.
Hey.
So glad you're here today. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So it's exciting to have George here, not only because of his wealth of information and experience, but he actually knows a dear cousin of mine. I got to meet him at an event, and we started talking, and you know, one thing leads to another, and here he is. So I get to know you deeper today, and I get to share you with all these wonderful people. So it's great. So maybe start with your path, your journey, because I assume you weren't meditating when you were 5 years old, and you know, and knowing how to be living optimally, you know, in your early years. But what was your path, and how did you evolve to be who you are today?
Okay, well, getting to be who I am today was just a moment-to-moment process that goes back to birth. And maybe even before, but I hear what you're saying. And no, I didn't grow up in a household that was particularly into meditation and mindfulness, though you know, other nice things. My path led me through you know, traditional education, public schools, public colleges, and then into the business realm, first as a computer programmer, and then as a principal in a startup associated with software development and people's management and stuff like that. So I did that until I was about 30, and which is an unfortunate long time ago, but, or I guess a fortunate long time ago.
It's all perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So I came in contact with yoga, particularly Kundalini yoga, after a number of years of searching around in the psychology realm. And the Kundalini yoga really opened my eyes and mind to and body to a whole different way of speaking and thinking and doing. So I immersed myself in that for some years, and came out the other side after dropping out of my business and schlepping my family across country and going to different kinds of retreats and teaching experiences, including the Ropa Institute in Colorado, I came out the other side realizing that my place was probably back in the business realm, and became a consultant, particularly with regard to process improvement and project management. And in that role, did a lot of teaching and the development of training materials in this regard, and all along integrating the what I learned in terms of meditation and the delving into the Eastern arts and philosophies. My finding was that unless you do something with that in the world, unless you bring it back, so to speak, it's wasted. So my work has been since then to to integrate yoga, meditation, wisdom thinking, and in a very practical setting. How do we manifest it day to day, moment to moment?
Wow. So I'm curious. I'm getting some feedback with me. I'm not sure. Do you have an outside mic? I'm hearing the feedback through your computer.
Just have a mic that's a lavalier mic. I can turn it off and just use the computer mic, but I think this would probably be better.
Well, let me hear. Whatever you just did stopped it. So maybe because you're holding it now, it's
maybe. Yeah,
it was hearing me. So
okay.
So I'm curious, being in the business world, not a lot of businesses are, up on the mindfulness and open to the things that you're talking about. And you're talking about years ago as well. How was it introducing this new kind of thought and new kind of approach in the business realm?
Well, it was my initial attempt at it was with a bunch of people back in the late 70s to create a meditation teaching group, a little company to teach meditation. And it fell apart. We couldn't really create the traction that it was needed to really support the people who were in it. Mm-hmm. So that kind of taught me. And so that back then, there was some recognition and some need for stress reduction and so forth. It's been actually a need for centuries, but there wasn't that kind of connection that would allow people to support it in the business realm.
Right.
I decided to kind of integrate it into the project management and process improvement work that I was doing. And the culmination of that was to write this book called The Zen Approach to Project Management. But before that, to have a number of seminars, workshops, and other kinds of learning situations that had as a component of it mindfulness, meditation, and let's call it skillful thinking.
That makes sense. I think one of the challenges that I see with people trying to bring this type of work into businesses is they take it and say, we'd like to teach you meditation, or we would like to bring in mindfulness. And what I'm hearing is you have this strong background in business, and you spoke their language, and we're helping them be consulting them with that business aspect, and that you integrated these pieces that it was sort of like a whole package deal, and you gave them the medicine along with their language, and it sounds like it was the perfect fit, and it's like you got in the door because of your knowledge, and then you were able to bring in, as you would say, this wisdom thinking, which I'd like to know more about. That's so cool. I mean, that's wonderful, because we need it. Corporate is suffering, people are suffering, and to get that optimal performance that everybody wants, there's all these components that they're needing. And so let's talk about optimal performance. Like what is it to you, and what is this path that you talk about, optimal performance? What are the pieces there?
Well, let's step back and before going into the pieces. What the whole is the notion that people have whether they're individuals, members of a team, or we look at the organization as a whole, there's this desire to get stuff done and to do it in a way that is satisfying to all of the parties, as many of the parties as possible.
Right.
if all is not possible. So optimal performance is really making sure that what one is doing and how one is doing it is skillful, is practical. It has a productivity associated with it, so I'm not expending unnecessary energy. And I can apply that to very complex situations, ranging from interpersonal one-on-one relationships to teamwork, to
Mm,
organizational dynamics, to politics, etc. So
mm,
it's really that notion of what does one do as an individual to get to that point where, one, you're not wasting energy,
mm-hmm,
two, you're meeting your expectations of yourself. It goes back to your work as an eliminator of the internal critic.
mm-hmm.
In time, not wanting to eliminate the aspect of that is establishing ideals.
Exactly.
So there's that quality of finding what is your ideal, what is your sense of what you want to do, how you want to accomplish it, what are your intentions.
Mm-hmm.
From there, what are the skillful means, the parts that you have to put together to accomplish that? So what those parts basically boil down to is your ability to first understand your expectations.
Mm,
What do you expect? What is your intention?
right.
And having some skills that are specific to your particular area of need and expertise. Let's say if you're a computer systems development person or group, you have needs to get very, very good at doing that. So the skills, the content.
Yep.
Then, alongside of that, how do you manage your projects and your processes? What kind of approach are you using to, and that approach can range from total random, I'll do what I feel like doing right now and it'll work out, to a much more organized, planned kind of approach that could border on the rigid, and what
Mm-hmm.
in between in terms of a right fit for that kind of work
Mm.
in one's environment.
Yes.
And so those elements, right expectations, a good sense of how to manage projects, good content, and then conflict management and relationships management.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you're going to be doing that has any substance in terms of accomplishment in the world is going to involve other people. How do you get along with other people? How do you manage the conflict that's almost inevitable when you're coming into contact with other people? And
Absolutely.
in a way that's healthy and compassionate and win-win to the degree that that's possible. And
Right.
recognizing that sometimes that's not possible, and there needs to be an understanding of how to manage that in a given circumstance. So it's putting those things together in a correct balance that will allow you now to operate optimally.
Well, those are a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Having a clear sense of your objectives, knowing what you're doing, all the interpersonal things. So, what are some of the skills that you offer to people? How do you help people navigate those waters? Because those were a lot of pieces
Yeah,
to success.
there's a lot of pieces to success, and I choose not to be overly simplistic. There are, people say do this and the world will change, and that may not be true. My sense is that you have to put these pieces together.
Yeah.
So stepping back from that sense of, this is a complicated world that we live in. How do we make it so that we can see that world from a perspective that allows it to become more and more simplified, while at the same time not denying its complexity? So I understand the nature of that as being the ability to practice mindfulness, practice a way of objectively observing whatever is occurring in or around you,
Hmm.
so as to have a platform for choosing the right thing to do.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that what you call the open-minded mindfulness that you were just describing?
Yes, it's basically the ability to be mindful and at the same time be objective and open-minded to see what reality is, as opposed to being driven by your particular model of the way that you think things should be,
Right.
and all of the conditioning that we have. How can we step back from even that even our most dearest held beliefs. And we can look back and see things as they are.
Yes.
And from that perspective, we can now choose to make things the way we would like them to be and recognize when we can't. And if we can't, then, we have to accept the way things are. So, it goes back to that serenity prayer, if you will, that notion of
What you
knowing,
can and can't do.
doing what you can and
Yeah.
when you can.
Yeah.
So that it's that quality that that I now bring in as open-minded mindfulness, objectively observing. Then
Mm-hmm.
also as a way of getting a better perspective. How is the world? Going back to this notion of wisdom thinking. What does that mean? What is wisdom? So, some models say that wisdom is simply knowing how things are and operating in a way that allows you to fulfill your highest intentions,
Mm.
given the way things are. So, how are things? So we can recognize that just about everything is impermanent, including ourselves. This body is going to, grow old and disappear, possibly get ill, and so forth. And at the same time, while it's there and it's healthy, enjoy that. There's impermanence. There's this notion that because of the impermanence and because of our attachment to the body and to how we would like things to be, there's a sense of dissatisfaction often.
Mm.
Not often. It depends on the individual. Some people may never be dissatisfied with anything, uh, like the Buddha. Everybody else is dissatisfied with something.
Yes.
So, uh, so knowing that that's normal, not thinking that it should be any other way, allows for another perspective.
Mm. Yeah. I totally resonate with what you're saying. And I'm curious with that whole open-minded mindfulness and wisdom, being able to see things just as they are. Like I understand that. And I'm, because of the work I've done, I do my best, of course, to see my side of the street and be able to be objective and aware of what is and what isn't. I'm curious, how does that work in the business world with people that haven't necessarily used these skills? I would think that beginners, well, most people that I bump into that haven't ventured into our realms yet are still in the blame game, still in the, well, that's what's wrong and it's not my fault. And that's where the conflict happens. How do you help them get to that open-minded objectivity for them to really see what really is so?
Mm-hmm. I try to come back to a couple of core questions. Is this being helpful?
Mm.
Is blaming someone or denying blame and being in a defensive posture, is it helpful? What good does it do?
Mm.
And then bring in the notion, which is very much in these wisdom teachings, but also uh, riddled through good business practices from quality improvement circles and so forth. What's the cause of a problem? And knowing the cause, what can I do to reduce its impact or eliminate
Mm-hmm.
it completely and get to a better solution? So with regard to the blame game, something went wrong. Somebody's expectations weren't met, and a head will roll, or multiple heads will roll.
Yes.
Given that people are frightened of having their heads roll, they now go into a posturing. That posturing might be blaming somebody else. If I can find blame in somebody else, then clearly it won't be me, and I'll be free. My head won't roll. Their head will roll.
Yeah.
And other manifestations of that same kind of thing, other defensive mechanisms and offensive mechanisms, all growing out of this fear. So now, can we have an environment in which the fear and the expectation that everything should be perfect and
Mm.
no errors and all of that, can we replace that notion with a notion that says that there are going to be problems and there are going to be errors, and that when they occur, we want to find out why they occurred and eliminate the underlying causes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they keep reoccurring and the reoccurrence is associated with one individual's performance, then that has to be acknowledged and you have
Mm-hmm.
accountability on that level. But more often than not, It's the process that's the problem.
Mm.
And if one takes that notion that by adjusting the process, you can then get a better end result, then people start working together to work the process and to make it better, rather than working against one another and blaming them personally for
Yeah.
whether it went wrong.
It makes sense. It makes sense. What I'm hearing is that it's almost slowing down the process. It's let's step back and let's look at it, instead of being in the drama, being in the crazy and everybody reacting. It's okay, something's happening here. Let's look at it. Let's observe it. Let's figure this out, and then take steps.
Exactly.
Just stepping into more information instead of just doing the reaction. I'm going to stop us for a second and just let everybody know that's here, and welcome to everybody, that the chat room is open. If you have any questions for George, you are welcome to write them. And hopefully, Steve, you got on because I saw that you asked if we were here, and we are, and we're hoping you can join us. So if anyone has any questions, please chime in. So getting back to the stepping back and looking at it.
But you use the word slowing things down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not to use that word in the context of organizations and performance, because
Right.
slow things down. But at the same time, it's exactly what you said. It's slowing things down in the sense of not being reactive, slowing things down in the sense of more and more being able to operate intuitively in the work.
Right. I'm glad you discerned that, because the whole point of this work and bringing your work into the business world is to get things done faster in a more effective, productive, optimal way. Exactly. And when we're in the reaction place and everybody's at each other and there's no real communication, it's very challenging to get things done, and there's going to be a heck of a lot more stress. And that's what this is about, is having more happiness and joy. There's a term you've used, unconditional happiness, and I'm curious, what is that, and how does that fit in this realm of work and beingness in the work that you do?
Well, here we get into philosophy, and so I don't hide the fact that I'm significantly influenced by the Buddhist philosophy and teachings, as well as others. But from that point of view, this notion of unconditioned happiness is associated with the idea that one intrinsically is happy, that the only thing that actually keeps us from being unconditionally happy is our tendency to build conditions. I have to have this to be happy. I have to have that to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
This other thing, I'm not going to be happy. All of that kind of stuff is getting in the way of simply being present in the moment and experiencing this innate quality of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the kind of happiness that, la, 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 jumping around, laughing all the time. It's something much deeper and more subtle than that.
Yeah.
It's the quality of really recognizing that in this very moment, I'm beyond okay.
Yes.
I'm just here. I'm, delightfully going through whatever I'm going through, whether it's a delightful thing in and of itself or not, immaterial, because I'm trying to more and more be accepting of exactly what's going on in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
By touching that place of just being home, there's this unconditioned happiness. And it manifests itself not just as some kind of a smiley face, but as something that can actually change the world, because it manifests itself as compassion. And it's through that compassion, that understanding that everyone could be experiencing this quality of happiness. And they aren't. Why aren't? How can I help them to do this? Because it's their birthright.
So how do you help people find that, what I call still point? I live in that place most of the time. I'm so grateful that there could be stuff happening and there could be some big heartache happening. There could be some pretty challenging things in my life, but I can say, just like you said, that in this moment, I have that untouchable place, that joyful place, kind of the center of the storm. Things can be flying around me, but I really can have that place of stillness and be okay. how do you, I help it by people lowering the volume of people's inner voices and doing processes around that. What are some of the things that you use and some of the tools to help people find that precious place that you're talking about?
Well, let me say that I'm working in two realms at the same time. One is the business realm, with a particular emphasis on managing processes and projects and helping people improve the way they operate.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the realm of being a meditation teacher.
Mm.
I lead groups in non-dual, thinking and how to apply um, meditative and skillful thinking into daily life. So when I'm in my role as a meditation teacher, it's much easier because people have self-selected to learn how to find their quiet space.
Yeah.
Generally will have found it at one point or another and want it to be either back or want to experience it more fully and more regularly. So there's a clear, open, quality of saying, okay, you want to do that? Here's a path. Here's a set of methods and techniques and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And a model that will help you to do that.
Yep.
You use it yourself, and you make sure that it's right for you and that it's true from your own experience. And gay gesundte hate, as they say, go in good health. But with whatever support you need.
Right.
There's that quality, and that's easy in the realm of people who have self-selected for meditation classes.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
In this realm, it's a bit different because there are a lot of people who, while they are aware of the desire to be happy, they don't necessarily connected with something that they do at work. And in some cases are exactly opposed to hearing that kind of stuff at work, like a church or synagogue or, like some temple or something like that. Mm-hmm. Too close to the mystical and the religious.
Yeah, too woo-woo.
So what one has to do is kind of not so much hide it, but couch it in different terms.
Yep.
What will be, going back to optimal performance, what will get you into that place where you can perform optimally? And when I say optimally, I don't mean at peak performance levels like, a super athlete, but for you.
Yeah.
Perform optimally. What's keeping you from doing that? So the goal becomes optimal performance. And then one discovers that, and, you don't have to be a deep analyst to know that people who are happier generally work more productively, produce better outcomes, and so forth. And so now that becomes a means to the end of optimal performance, as opposed to an end in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, one would hope that somebody who has touched that quality of themselves can transfer it to everything that they're doing. So it's not just about working effectively on a team or being a good manager or a good leader and so forth. Are you a good person? Are you able to take that quality that you found, that still point that you found, and that you're using to perform optimally, then connect it with what you really mean by optimal? Going back to that, to that sense of what's your intention.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, when you said that, my first thought was, quality versus quantity, not necessarily those exact words for what you just talked about, but the idea of having a richness and having a way of being that that gives you that happiness and joy and peace and compassion, so that everything you touch, there's some substance to it versus getting more, doing more. I mean, what I hear is an integration of lots of inner what people want, which is happiness, but happiness and to be able to be effective in what they do, and guiding them to that. So I love that you can bridge that, with the fact that what you know in the yoga, in the meditation path, and all the things that you've learned along the way in the business vocabulary. So if you were working with someone and they are wanting to be more productive, and they have their clear vision of what they want, and they have their objectives in a way that feels right to them, actually, I want to ask you about the realistic part, the realistic objective thing. What might be the first step that you would offer to them if you see that they're at the mercy of their emotions, that their reactions are still taking a toll on their ability to really show up in that balanced, healthy way? What might you offer to them in those cases?
Tracks for that person. One would be to investigate the real underlying causes of their reactions, their negative reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So they're reacting, anger, fear, whatever it is that's driving them. What's underlying that? How can they step back enough to experience the anger or fear or guilt or whatever the issue is, so that they can capsulize it, see it for what it is, still experience it fully,
Mm-hmm.
not have to react where that reaction is some means of getting rid of that feeling.
Mm.
Now that's hard work. Most people don't even want to deal with that.
Right, right.
Fierce. It's basically, what? You mean I have to accept the fact that I'm freaked out completely and
Yes.
and just live with that?
Yeah, yeah.
That's hard work. But if one can do it,
Mm-hmm.
then one gets to that point where they're no longer driven.
Yep.
And once they're no longer driven, they have the ability to then see why they were driven in the first place, how to start to eliminate the underlying cause of that particular experience. So that's one channel. The other channel is, okay, you're keeping yourself from doing what it is that you really want to do. Is what you really want to do what you really want to do? And it comes to this notion of realistic expectations and objectives.
Mm-hmm.
Can you manifest your objective given your current state of skill, your current economic situation, your emotional situation? Do you have the capacity to do what you want to do?
How do you know that? Because one of the things is, the biggest thing that I see certainly with my clients is that lack of self-worth, or the self-doubt, because of all the things that have led up to this point in their life that made them question their ability. So how does somebody know if it's realistic or not? How do they navigate the internal wiring that says, no, it's not realistic, you can't do it, when maybe they really can?
It's a testing. It's basically taking a hypothesis that says, I can do this. I'm trying to do it, and seeing whether you can accomplish it or not, knowing that there are going to be fits and starts, knowing that you're going to run into different difficulties. You might fail the first couple of times, and to be aware enough of your inner tape of the blaming tape, or the I'm less than tape.
Yep.
To know when that's occurring, and to cut it at its roots, but at the same time not eliminate it so far that you become unrealistic.
Yep.
So it's finding that right balance. And how do you know that the right balance is there? Well, you're testing, you're seeing in the real world, can you do this? I would love to be a concert pianist. It would be lovely to be able to, I wouldn't necessarily go on the tour, but one of the pianos, in the park and play. I probably have the capacity to do that, but I'm not willing to spend the time.
Right. It's not realistic for you with what, and how much you might want it. It's like where there's all those pieces, how important is it? And are you really willing to pay the price to get it? And how does it fit in your life?
Yes, exactly. So that's another thing to offer the person who's coming for some kind of assistance to becoming more and more optimal in their performances. What is your expectation high enough or too high? What are you bringing to the situation that is causing you to self-sabotage? And then what can you do about it?
I think that's great. I think that's just so important for people to again step back and look at all these pieces. I think a lot of times we really don't take the time to really investigate what it is we want and what's getting in our way, and is it doable, and And even to open-minded mindfulness. Oh yeah, open-minded? Yeah, open-minded mindfulness. It's not only just about the external circumstances, but really what is the internal dynamic that's happening, and are those thoughts real? And I mean, are those thoughts something to, where do they come from, and what are their impact, and how to shift them so that they don't get in the way? I mean, just that constant diving deeper under the surface. The one other thing I wanted to point out that I thought was really great that you said was to not push away the experience, to not push away the emotions, because to me that's putting it into shadow. That's not allowing yourself to have the experience, to actually learn from it. And that when people start to realize that when they really allow themselves to feel what they're feeling and not react, but actually sit with it, which could be a little uncomfortable at first, but that they realize that there's so much more of a cost in not feeling it,
Exactly.
that they can really then move through it so much faster and actually make things happen much more cleanly in the world.
Yes, indeed. That's exactly it. And what we try to do is use techniques. So, going back to this notion of what can you give, there's the ultimate understanding of what you can do for yourself, the understanding of what you're currently keeping you from getting your objectives and all of that. But then what's the method? So the method is cultivate sufficient level of mindfulness to do exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
It's easy to say, oh, just sit with your fear.
Yeah. But then what?
Not only then what, but how do you do that?
Right.
You do that. It's like the fear comes up and it's all encompassing, and it grabs hold of you, and you're off and running into that unconscious reactive mode, or the anger, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, you need some method in order to get to the bottom of that. And the method comes down to this mindfulness meditation.
That's great.
It may not be the only method, maybe there are others, but this one is tried and true. It works.
Yeah.
It gives one the capacity to enhance an already existing capability, which is mindfulness. Everybody is mindful to some degree. And to expand that capacity, and then focus it in a way that gives you more and more insight into the way that you are operating in the world. Seeing the internal process, seeing the external process, seeing the interactions of those, and ultimately merging them so that there's just a process.
Yeah. Before we move on, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about meditation, and time just flies, I want you to talk about your newsletter, and I'm going to put a live link up for people to have access to it. So let people know how to find out more about your work. I know you teach classes, you have books. Let everyone know a little bit more about how to find you.
Okay. Well, my newsletter, and Ginny will put up the link, but it's basically found at pitigorskiconsulting.com. And it's a newsletter that began focused on how to apply what we're talking about, particularly in the realm of project and program and process management. But over the last few years has come out of the closet and is basically much more upfront about dealing with the more general application of wisdom thinking and meditation practice and yoga into daily life. So the articles range from what does it mean to be progressive? How do you deal with with ongoing anger situations? Many different subjects. So one can just go to the website, take a look at the archives, and find I don't know how many, but a zillion. Close
just a zillion.
Over this last maybe 7 or 8 years of writing these articles. In terms of finding me for courses and things like that, same vehicle. I haven't been doing much outside of the realm of New York Insight and other kinds of groups, and I do coaching as well, individual coaching. I haven't been on the road for a number of years in terms of teaching optimal performance classes and so forth. I've been very much happily anchored in the current work that I'm doing, which is in New York.
Nice.
After being a road warrior for 2 decades. You know,
Ah.
yeah.
So we have a a handful of minutes left.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about insight meditation and if someone wanted to get started with that, some pointers? I mean, how does one do meditation for somebody who might be a beginner? Is there a certain way that you recommend? I mean, there's different styles, and I'd like to know more about what you think about
Okay.
the way you do it.
Yeah. I mean, the style that I practice is it's called insight meditation. There's a Pali word for it called Vipassana, and it's a mindfulness meditation technique that begins by cultivating concentration. So it starts with focusing on the breath. So one finds a comfortable posture, something that's reasonably erect and relaxed, and focuses in on the feelings of the body and the sensations of the breath. And the breath is used as a touchstone, because what will happen is thoughts will arise, and there will be a noticing of the thought or not. If there's not a noticing of the thought, then the tendency would be to get lost in it, to take a little, mind trip, if you will, get on that thought train and take it to wherever it's going. And then at some point, be aware that your intention of staying with the breath has been not kept. So you bring yourself back to the breath, comfortably, without blaming yourself. And this quality of continuously bringing oneself back to this point of concentration, in this case, the breath, over and over again, starts to train the mind to become more concentrated, so that there's a sense of deeper relaxation, there's a sense of stress relief to some degree, and a broadening of one's perspective, a feeling of spaciousness. Then the next stage in this technique is to open up. So a thought arises. Can I be with that thought? Or a sound arises. Can I be with that sound without getting lost in it? Without following the thought, or without reacting to the sound or the physical sensation? Can I simply observe it objectively as it's occurring? I do this, and then I find myself getting lost. So if I get lost, I come back to the breath. And more, I stop getting lost. And I become more and more capable of being simply present and mindful and aware in the moment. Now, the time that it takes to go from step 1 to step N could be a minute. If somebody's really ready, they have all of these, wonderful merit that they accumulated in past lives and all of that. they're done.
Don't we wish?
So alternatively, one has to practice. One has to more and more learn a very simple practice, but simple doesn't mean easy.
Yeah. So how much do you practice, and do you change your routine at this point, or are you pretty set with what works for you?
Well, both. My core practice is sitting for half an hour every morning, and following that with yoga and Tai Chi. So a half hour sitting, half hour of doing yoga and Tai Chi, and then my body and mind are a little bit ready for the day. The primary practice that I do is moment to moment. Like somebody said to me once, you could sit for an hour, a half hour, 3 hours a day. What about the rest of the time? You want to just waste that? So the message is, don't waste your time.
Absolutely.
This is a place, using insight meditation or many other practices, but insight meditation is one of the few things that you can do simultaneously with anything else. Multitasking, So you're cultivating the ability to do whatever it is that is being done, and at the same time, simultaneously being aware of it, mindful of it, and in a position to have choice.
Beautiful.
And there are many techniques to do that. Walking down the street becomes a walking meditation. Talking to you becomes a talking meditation. Is there that quality of awareness without getting lost?
That's great. And when you think about the day-to-day lives we live and all the things we come in contact with, the gifts that would come from being so present, being so aware with every moment with whoever we're speaking with. I mean, that's life-changing. That's completely life-changing. What would you say has been the greatest gift to you having discovered meditation?
I think the discovery of not just meditation, remember, is a technique.
Right, it's a piece. Yeah.
The greatest gift is the discovery of Dharma, which basically means the discovery of, quote, truth.
Yeah.
Not in a sense of, something written down as truth or some, kind of truth with a capital T. But what is it really all about? That people have been exploring that and transferring knowledge about it for centuries in many different traditions that are now coming together more and more into a cohesive understanding of what wisdom and wisdom teachings are really like. That to me is the greatest gift that I've had. It's totally
great.
Life changing. It's life changing and world changing. It's just that I can't think of a gift that's greater than that, including my wife and my children, who are tremendously great gifts. But what could be greater than the gift of Dharma?
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. So we're at time, George. Thank you so much for sharing all the beautiful things you did. I know people got a lot out of our talk today. So thank you for being with us, and I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. If I may,
yeah.
For those who want to explore mindfulness and meditation and so forth, New York Insight Meditation Society New York Insight Meditation Center, NYIMC.org, is a great place to start if you're in the New York area. If you're not in the New York area, it might still be a great place to start because you can network from there out into a huge network of insight meditation centers around the globe.
Thank you. And I'm in the process of moving, and there's a train now where I'm going to be living that goes right into New York City. So I actually think I will do that. I've been wanting to, but I've been living in the middle of nowhere with no trains, no mass transit. It sounds wonderful. I think you exemplify the gifts of the journey that you've taken and all the pieces that you've shared with us today. Thank you so much, George. And everybody, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed the show. And that's it for today. And blessings to everyone, and be well. Go breathe and focus on your breath and be with all that is in this moment. Bye, everyone.
Bye.